Hi, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. Let me share my screen so that everyone can start seeing the slides. And I'm going to, right. Thank you, everyone, for joining the session today. We are going to be talking about successful transformations and why they need Scrum Masters. A little bit about me. Let's see if this slide works. There you go. Okay. I'm Arijit Ghosh. People call me Ari as well. I'm a business agility coach. I have been in the agility world for more than 15, 16 years. I've been in the IT industry for over 20 years and have been helping organizations, both on the business and the IT side, to help them in their transformation journey. So that's a little bit about me. There are a couple of companies out there that I have worked. There are many more, but of course, we can't list all of them here. I worked across various industries. I had the experience of learning as well as part of this journey. And hopefully, as I share my transformation experience and as I share my journey of these transformations, you will be able to relate to some of the work that you may be doing in your field. There are quite a few of us here now. We will try to look at answering questions maybe a little bit throughout the session. We will have a dedicated Q&A at the end. We will talk about mostly focused around Scrum Masters, their roles, their responsibilities. So please feel free to put your questions on the chat box. Somebody will help me, because I can't see the chat box here, but somebody will help me with the questions, hopefully, and then I'll try to answer them. Okay, so let's move on to this. So transformation in action. And I always love to show this slide, mainly because when I first, about 7 years ago, I started working with a client in the insurance industry. They were asking me all kind of questions around why transformation is such a struggle. And one of the participants showed me this slide, and I really loved it, and I decided to kind of use this. This is in a way showing why transformation is very, very, I wouldn't say difficult, but challenging. And it's challenging because transformation is not about working with a particular team. Transformation is all about helping the whole organizations transform from where they are now to where they want to be. And that's moving the whole organization can be challenging, as you can understand. So I love this slide around that. There's a lot of story behind this, but that's for some other day. So what do successful business transformations involve? These are just few. These are by no means the only points, but they are definitely are some key ones. Adapting to a fast-changing environment. This is key, and we will be talking about this in a couple of later slides. One thing I would say is this session is going to be not so much focused on the slides, but more focused on what I have seen in my career, in my experience of transformation. And I'm going to share that more. I think that will be a lot more useful for all of you because you will be able to relate if you're already working or if you're striving towards that. So adapting to fast-changing environment, that's very key. If you're transforming, if you're not fast enough to respond to the changing environment, then you will lag behind. That's key. Organizational growth mindset, and this is also key because growth mindset, I don't know how many of you have heard about growth mindset and fixed mindset. It's now a very commonly used terminologies, and I would like to spend a little bit of time explaining what this is, because as a Scrum Master, if you are already in the journey of becoming a Scrum Master, or you are an experienced Scrum Master who needs some more guidance, I would say growth mindset is key for the success of your team and for the organization. Ace Cube, who is running this webinar, and I'm helping them here. They talk about growth mindset in their trainings, and you will find that the growth mindset is key as a Scrum Master for you being a successful Scrum Master. What it really means is that when you face a challenge, how you react, right? As simple that. I won't go into any difficult definition. You will find a lot of them on Google. But growth mindset is all about how you react to a difficult situation. Do you learn from it and therefore improve, or do you feel, or do you give up, or do you feel that this is not something that you can do? Right? So that's the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And the other important difference between growth mindset and fixed mindset would be that you've grown in your career, in your day-to-day life, with certain things that you've seen around you, and therefore it is a natural tendency to assume that is how it works. And growth mindset actually is the other side of that, and it kind of says maybe there's something that you can do differently. So have that growth mindset, because that's very important as a Scrum Master, as a team, to help in the transformation journey. Culture of continuous improvement, very much related to the growth mindset, which is you need to constantly improve. Right from when you are planning, when you are planning your, let's say, your backlogs, or when you are planning your releases, all throughout, you need to have a continuous improvement culture, and that's where you will be successful. And fourth one, which is often missed and often not given enough importance, is innovation. That's very key. You need to bring in innovation. Innovation helps the team to improve, and not from a just delivery perspective, personal growth of the team members, and that actually helps the overall team in becoming a high performing. And a high performing team, as we all know, is the success for any transformation. So let's move on. This is a little bit more about the agile transformation. This is, you can see that these quadrants about predictability, emergence, adaptability, and convergence. And if you look at this one, this kind of highlights some key points. It kind of says that there is a balance that you need to have. When in some of the transformations that I have done, I was working with the big multinational bank, and they were all about, we have to have the best predictability that is possible. Now, in order to have the best predictability, you have to give up something else. And that's kind of highlights strongly in this kind of a matrix. So this is what I have experienced, and I have shared my experience back with our clients, that you need to look where you want to be and what you want to compromise in order to achieve a successful transformation. A Scrum Master plays a very, very important role in this, because they are the heart of those teams. They are the ones who are removing impediments for the teams and having the right directions as an overall transformation on the predictability, on the emergence, on the adaptability, and on the convergence. That kind of helps the team to be focused, for the Scrum Master to be aligned. So you as a Scrum Master have a very key role in deciding how we will move in this transformation. Okay, so let's see if we have any questions. I will have a quick look. How does a Scrum Master measure success? Very good question. I will come to metrics and measurement a little bit later, so please hold on to that thought. Okay, so moving on. This is something that I like to show, which I'm sure you've seen if you have already been in the Agile world. It's about, so can you guys still, hopefully can still see what it's about delivering value faster, right? Okay, so what is really important is that you are able to deliver value faster. And that's what this shows. The diagram at the top, which is a typical waterfall, those who don't know what's a waterfall or what's an incremental delivery, waterfall has been a traditional delivery method where we do the requirements, do all the planning, then do some implementation, then do some testing, and then finally deliver, as it's shown in the diagram. While incremental delivery, as you can see, is you constantly deliver and you start gradually grow what you deliver on top of the previous delivery, and therefore you still achieve what the waterfall achieves, but you start delivering value faster. And in waterfall, you only get to deliver something quite late. And therefore, that kind of talks about delivering early and often. And also the quality of the delivery is much better when you have an incremental delivery as compared to waterfall. Okay, so next. Agile values. As a Scrum Master, please don't forget this. We often, Scrum Masters I've seen in my experience, having worked with different organizations, come from all different kinds of backgrounds. Some have been project managers before, some would be maybe tech leads who have decided to become a Scrum Master. And one thing that I would say that constantly that I've kind of seen is people forget what are the agile values, and they go into more of a general traditional ways of working. They often shift to that. So think about the agile values. Remember, there are only 4 agile values: individuals and interactions, working software, customer collaboration, and responding to change. Now, the key part is it says over processes and tools, over comprehensive documentation. So remember that we are not ignoring processes and tools or documentation, but we are only saying focus more on the interactions and working software and collaboration and responding to change. Right. Okay. Let's have a quick look of some how it helps us in the career. Okay, let me try to answer some of these questions. So how it helps us in the career. As a Scrum Master, you start looking at delivering value for your customer. You're no more focused on just delivering a project. So as a career path, if you're talking about a career path, if I've got your question correct, as a career path, Scrum Masters, by the way, are also like a team coach. So if you're a Scrum Master, then you can move up to the role of an RPE or an Agile Program Manager, and then you can become more of a coach, helping the teams. And then as you develop that skill more and more, you can probably become an enterprise Agile coach. So that's kind of a career you can hopefully that kind of hopefully gives you the answer. The other question I have: how does the agile economics differ from traditional software development approaches? Very good. So that's an interesting question. In the software, first of all, let me clarify. Agility or agile is not just about software development, right? It's also applicable very much any part of an organization. I've worked with finance, I've worked with HR, I've worked with compliance, and they all have embraced agility in their transformation journey. And the biggest difference is about being able to deliver value to your customer faster. So when you're trying to measure, and I'm going to try to answer that question about the measurement. When you're trying to measure, if your measurement is about how effectively you are delivering, how quickly you are delivering value for your customer, that is the ultimate measure. Because at the end of the day, whatever you are doing for your delivering for value for your customer. So by the way, the customer does not always necessarily have to be your external customer. It could be your internal customer as well. So whoever is your customer, as long as you are delivering value faster for them, then you are on the right path of measuring the success. There are multiple ways you can measure success. There is always a misconception that I would like to share based on my experience that calculating velocity for a team is the ultimate way to measure success. That's not the case. You can actually measure success in various other factors. For example, predictability, having flow predictability is another important measure. And there are a couple of other things that you can measure. If you have come across scaled agile, which you may have if you're working within a transformation. Transformations are usually big. You will have scaled agile, and there will be frameworks like SAFe, and they talk about 7 different dimensions that you actually can measure. in order to see that the whole organization is transforming. And Scrum Masters play an important role because all these measurements start at the team level, then they go up to the program level, they will go all the way up to the portfolio level. So as a Scrum Master, you need to know how to measure those for your team so that you can help the overall transformation. There's one more question, and then I'll go back onto the slide. As a Scrum Master, how do you access the Scrum team delivery? How do you access the Scrum team delivering quality product? Quality is actually inbuilt in the way the agile ways of working, in the core ways of working of the agile frameworks. You pick up any of the framework, whether it is Scrum or Kanban or anything else, they all talk about having built-in quality. Some of them even talk about, I don't know how many of you know about TDD or BDD, and they all kind of enforces that, for example, TDD is test-driven development, and there are frameworks which talks about, hey, why don't you write your test cases first, and then we will do the coding. Like that's another extreme. But quality is built in. You have a regular feedback. You have a 2 weeks. If you are having a Scrum framework, that's what you are going through. Then you have a 2-week cycle where you get your feedback every 2 weeks as part of your retrospective. And therefore you constantly improve through those sessions. So yeah, quality is built in. I can talk a little bit more about that. Let's go through these slides first, making sure that I've covered what, as a Scrum Master, what you need to do. Okay, so agile principles. Again, I won't bore you with all these 12 principles. If you are in this journey, you know about it, but the reason why it is here is don't forget about it. These are important. So Scrum is just one of the many frameworks that I mentioned. There is Kanban, there is a couple of others. And what is really great about Scrum is that almost every transformation that I worked, I've seen organizations embrace Scrum. That's what they usually pick it up as the first requirement, as the first framework that they usually kind of tend to move towards. And the reason being, it has a bit of a discipline. For example, every 2 weeks, you have to do certain things. And it's a human psychology, it's a human mind that when you have this kind of a structure, then people tend to work better. Organizations tend to work better. That does not necessarily mean that it's always the right choice. And often there are, let's say, a support organization, they would, the support unit would often go for a Kanban, not necessarily Scrum, but Scrum works. Scrum works for most of the scenarios that we see. So again, I won't bore you with all these various data. You can have a look at that. But Scrum is a very popular framework that focuses on the collaboration, communication. But that's some of these you will realize that they are inbuilt into this framework because they are all part of the Agile framework, right? So the methodology Agile itself talks about all these great values. Okay, so Scrum process, a quick recap. Remember, there is a Scrum Master, of course, that's what we are talking about, but there are a couple of others. We have product owner, and we, of course, have the team. What you find interesting here is we always talk about Scrum Master, product owner, and the team. We do not necessarily say an engineer or a QA or a developer. We call them as a team because the whole concept is about having a cross-functional team, right? That's also a key role that is as a Scrum Master. And when you go through the trainings, Scrum Master training or certification, you will see that how, as a Scrum Master, it becomes an important role for you to create a cross-functional team, to promote a cross-functional team, and that will help your team to become a high-performing team. That will also remove a lot of typical impediments that I have seen in Scrum teams, like, for example, you are blocked because a developer kind of says, I've done my work, I'm now waiting for the QA to finish their work. These kind of typical challenges can be overcome when you have a cross-functional team. Now, cross-functional team is not always possible. I've seen that in practice when I've done a lot of transformations, but I've also seen transformations where a developer would step up and would say, okay, why don't I write the different test case scenarios? At least I'm taking up part of the QA work, and then the QA experts, the QA SMEs within the team, they can validate those test cases or add on top of that. So I've seen that happen. And on the other side, I've seen where the QA would jump in and would say, why don't I write some unit test cases for the developers? And that way, when the developers are coding, they have the unit tests ready for them to execute. So there are little wins as a Scrum Master that you can do. So these are some of the practical tips that I thought I would share during this webinar, because it will then be hopefully be quite useful in your day-to-day job if you are already doing that role. Okay. Okay, let's see, what do we have? Okay, I would like to know how different is Agile when compared to Lean Six Sigma in terms of approach or methodologies. It's a big topic now between Agile and Lean, and I can go on about that. But fundamentally, Lean is all about, there's a lot of overlap. First of all, there's a lot of overlap, and there are no clear-cut separation that this is Agile, this is Lean, and this is, it's not like that. In fact, if you start looking at some of the scaled frameworks like SAFe, you will find that the fundamentally SAFe is based on Lean and agility and Agile, and both of them. So we should not necessarily think of them as separate, but they are as supporting. So that's how I would kind of consider it. Lean is all about removing waste. Agile, of course, talks also about removing waste, and then Agile methodology has so many different frameworks. So think of them as supporting each other in order to achieve the overall transformation that we need to have. Hopefully that answers the question. How does a Scrum Master help with the team dynamics? Okay, Scrum Master, and I so feel that the name Scrum Master is so not appropriate, if I may actually say, because the Scrum Master is not really a master, is a servant leader. A Scrum Master would be more like somebody who is always focused on how to improve the team's performance. However way it may be, by removing impediments is just one way, but also as a coach. That's why I kind of keep on saying a Scrum Master also plays a role of a team coach. And the objective of the Scrum Master is, how can I make my team more efficient so that they perform better? And when they perform better, they're delivering more value for the customer. When you deliver more value for the customer, you have a happy customer. And who doesn't love a happy customer, right? So definitely the Scrum Master plays an important role in that. The Scrum Master also needs to create what we call a psychological safety. And you will also, if you attend a lot of webinars, you will realize that psychological safety is directly related to your high-performing team. So again, these are some of the things that when you go through the Scrum Master course, these are the things that we talk about, where we kind of help understand the Scrum Master role, how it actually plays an important, as part of the team dynamics, plays an important role in improving the team's psychological safety, and therefore becoming a high-performing team. Okay, so let's move on. Please feel free to keep pouring in the questions. I'm loving them, and hopefully you are getting what you are here for. So, Scrum team and its roles. As a Scrum Master, once you have all the trainings, etc., one thing that you will find is, when you're on the job, or when you are actually implementing some of the learnings that you're going to get, there are practical challenges that you will have to overcome. So one of them is about the whole team. I think one of the questions that we were just addressing now was about the team dynamics. So you have a product owner, you have the stakeholders, you have the team itself, and and the Scrum Master is kind of a glue for everybody. Scrum Master works very closely with the product owner, even helps the product owner to maybe own the backlog and create the backlog, and helps the stakeholders understand the dynamics of things that are changing. So Scrum Master is really very crucial to bringing everybody together. So if if I have not been able to convey yet how crucial this role is, then please do understand that without a dedicated full-time Scrum Master in your team, you are not going to achieve the maturity journey. And this I'm saying from my practical experience in doing so many transformations over the last few years. Some of the transformations where we have spent a lot of time and effort ended up having to hire a dedicated Scrum Master, because that's was the burning point, the pain point, right? So you do play an important role here. Again, this is as I was mentioning, the Scrum Master. I kind of the image kind of shows, oh, I'm the master. I'm not the master. I'm actually a servant leader. So Scrum Master is actually a servant leader. Maybe I will spend a couple of minutes talking about being a servant leader. You will, as a servant leader, you are playing a leadership role, but you're not playing a leadership role in a traditional ways of working. You're not playing a leadership role as a boss, right? And that's where a Scrum Master differs so much from a project manager. And I will share with you my experience as a project manager. I have been in my early days when I still didn't get introduced to the agile ways of working. I have been a project manager, and I really feel sorry for those developers that I was working with, because I would stand behind them and I would say, have you done it? Have you done it? Have you done it? Like a project manager would do. So project manager and Scrum Master is very different, right? So therefore, when a project manager moves into this role, that's the scariest bit, because a project manager comes with those mindset, and a Scrum Master is a very different. Scrum Master is a servant leader who is there to serve the team. The Scrum Master plays the role of a leadership role, but to serve the team, right? And therefore they are a facilitator. They remove impediments, and they foster an environment of high performing team. So we have kind of talked about it in some of the previous slides. Okay, so what are some of the skills required? You will find it interesting that a lot of those are kind of soft skills, like they should be good at communication, collaborative skills, decision making, soft skills like empathy and patience, and of course, traditionally able to manage stakeholders. One of the things that's probably not mentioned here, but I would say that I have seen as a practical experience as a Scrum Master would be, especially when you're working within a transformation, big transformation, you have to work with multiple other agile teams. And when you are all part of a program, then there are a lot of other dynamics that comes into the play. As a Scrum Master, you will be heavily involved in working with other Scrum Masters, which is not that we have discussed so far, right? And I don't want to go into that too much detail here, but remember and as you go through the certification or the training, Scrum Master training, and then there is an advanced Scrum Master training as well, you can reach out to AceCube if you want more details about it. But if you will find that in these trainings, what you will learn is not only how you become a Scrum Master for your own team, but how you can be a Scrum Master for your team and also be part of a bigger transformation. And that is where your career, I think somebody asked the question about the career, that is a big jump in your career, because you are now no more working with one small team. You're now part of a bigger program, and therefore you're learning a lot more skills, and your career is growing. Okay, hopefully that kind of made sense. Some of the responsibilities, you can go through all of that. Nothing that you probably don't know. If you have any questions, please do. And I can see something there. Okay. How do a Scrum Master, okay, so there's one. How does Scrum Master shield the Scrum team from external influence? Good one. So a Scrum Master would, so a lot of it goes into the governance or the framework. Okay, so if I just quickly scroll back, let me just quickly go back here in the process here. So this is a Scrum process, and there's a reason why this has been tried out and people kind of embrace this process is because you have a product owner who's defining your backlog, defining what needs to be prioritized, and then you have a sprint planning that happens where the product owner who represents the customer, who represents the stakeholders, is part of those meetings and actually helping the team decide which ones to be done as a priority. Invariably, things come in where maybe the CTO of the company or the CEO or the senior person comes in and says, guys, you have to do this. I can relate to that because I've seen that and I've gone through that experience myself. I think one of the ways and this is not the right or wrong, right? But one of the ways you can do is I always pass on any new requirement for the team to the product owner. It's the product owner's decision whether the product owner wants to stop what the team has decided to be done in the sprint and add this new requirement. If they want to they need to understand what it costs to stop something and bring something new. I won't go into the details, but maybe another webinar we can talk about cost of delay, and that's a powerful way of pushing back on people who want things to be changed in the middle of a 2-week sprint. And then the other important thing that you can do to tackle that would be always ask the question, if I'm going to bring this in, what am I dropping, right? So because you have a 2-week, you have a fixed team, you can only do so much. So if we are bringing this in, what am I dropping? So these are some of the powerful questions. As a Scrum Master, you should always ask your product owner, or whoever is bringing in these changes. Hopefully that kind of helped. Let's move on. There was some other question, I think. What are some best practices for Scrum Masters to follow when preparing for a PI planning session? Okay, PI planning, and let me talk a little bit about PI planning, what it means. Well, actually, let me hold on to that because I will come to that in a minute. Scrum Master and various hats, as I was talking about, I'm not going to repeat. They kind of put various hats on in order to play what they need to play. I think, and I'm hoping that you are starting to realize that a Scrum Master is not a part-time role. A Scrum Master is not something that you can just start playing that role. You need to have the right knowledge, right training in order to play that role. And of course, nothing is better than on the job, right? So you must, I would strongly suggest, and this is what I always suggest to my CXOs that I work with, please get your Scrum Masters trained, get your product owners trained, and then help them in the journey on their on-the-job training or on-the-job experience. Okay, so I'll come to the PI planning question in a minute, but I wanted to introduce concept about business agility. Let's make sure we are good with time. Okay, we are good. Business agility, that's what I wanted to talk about, because business agility, we touched upon right in the beginning, is all about bringing the ability for the whole organization to change, right? And to change quite quickly, rapidly, and to be able to still remain focused on delivering value for your customer. That's business agility. There are many other definitions, but in the crux of that is you respond quickly and you deliver value for the customer. That's what the bottom line is. Usually, we talk about business agility in various complex business transformation. It does not have to be like that, but I think when you have more complex transformations, big organizations, or more challenging environments, that's where it becomes more important to have a little bit of a framework that helps the organizations go through this transformation journey. And that's where various scaled frameworks like SAFe comes into play, and that helps organizations who are dealing with this complex transformation to have a little bit of a guidance, it is a framework after all, so it's kind of a guidance of how they can take their organization through that transformation. And we need great Scrum Masters, which I've kind of highlighted already, in order to help organizations go through these complex business transformations. One thing that I wanted to talk about was And this is very, very important why Scrum, and as a Scrum Master, you will have an important role to play, whatever framework we choose, whether it is, so these are some of, so what you see on the outer circle there, like SAFe, Scrum of Scrums, DAD, LESS, Nexus, these are all um, various scaled framework. Now, what do I mean, I've kind of a couple of times talked about scaled framework, right? Let me kind of briefly explain what I mean. When you have a big organization and you're going through a lot of transformation work as part of helping the whole organization be more agile, then it's not about one team. It's actually about multiple teams, and they all may be contributing towards one particular initiative or a program. So therefore, you bring together these teams. They need to have coordinate well amongst themselves, all focused on a particular value delivery. Okay, but by the way, we kind of call them value streams, for example, which is about focus on delivering value, a particular value, value number one for your customer. This is kind of, in simple language, is scaling, because now you are no more talking about one agile team with one Scrum Master. You're suddenly talking about 8, 10, 12 different Scrum teams, or whatever teams, Kanban teams, it could be Kanban teams as well, but they're all coming together to deliver a particular value, right? And this is what I wanted to highlight, that SAFe, Scrum of Scrums, DAD, Nexus, LESS, whatever kind of framework you will choose, at the heart of it, there is Scrum, the concept of Scrum, the practices, the processes that are there in most of these kind of scale frameworks. So please understand that if you are a Scrum Master, you are pivotal to for these kind of transformations. Okay. Scrum Master is so now let me step back here and talk about PI planning. So I wanted to, before I answer that question, PI planning is a concept where we do, and sometimes it is called a big room planning, but what it does is it tries to bring multiple teams together. By the way, guys, if you want to learn more about all of this, you should attend the training, because all of this is covered in detail. If you are already in a transformation, if you are about to be in the transformation, you should attend this the Scrum Master training, because it will really enable and help you in doing what you are doing more effectively. So PI planning is a way where you bring in all the teams together, and Scrum Masters are responsible for facilitating in collaboration with the program manager, overall, let's say the program manager, the agile program manager for that value stream. And Scrum Masters play an important role, because they not only have to now work with, as I was mentioning earlier, with their own team, but they also have to work with all these Scrum Masters from other teams, along with the agile program manager, in order to be aligned and focused on delivering value for the customer. So hopefully that answered that question. Let's have a quick look. So some of the best practices for Scrum Masters to follow when preparing for a PI planning session, I think there are many, but whatever you are currently doing, if you have already gone through the trainings, then you will probably know that whatever best practices that you have as a servant leader, those are still applicable when you go for a PI planning. But additionally, for a PI planning session, you need to also ensure that your dependencies that you may have for your teams, they are identified. It's a big chapter about dependency management and dependency metrics. But again, a scaled framework like SAFe talks about that and how to manage that. If you're interested, then you can attend that session, maybe a webinar as well, if you're interested. And I'm sure we will have many of those in future. Let's see, what else do we have? How can business agility help organization in times of crisis? Business agility, if you go back to the definition, it's about delivering value for the customer, right? So so I'm not very clear when you say help organizations in times of crisis, if you're talking about the organization itself is in crisis, or are you talking about helping the customer? In either way, it's always about delivering value to your customer. So business agility forces you to only think about what's really needed by your customer. What I have seen, and I will give you some data points about 40% of waste is simply removed actually during handling of crisis, where when organizations are put into a state into kind of a situation where they have to deal with a crisis, they have limited resource, for example, or they have a deadline to hit for their customer. In any kind of crisis, product owners, Scrum Masters, teams, they all come up with innovative ways to tackle that. Those innovative ways are focused on delivering value for the customer. And therefore, they start trimming out all the waste. So the concept of lean, concept of agile, those practices and values start kicking in the times of crisis. So what I've seen is those who have the understanding of what business agility is, those who have gone through the either through experience or through trainings of how business agility works, they have been able to sustain these kind of crises. Hopefully that kind of answered that question. How would one see his or her career post Scrum Master trainings from financial perspective? Good one. I'm actually I'm going to be talking to a huge group of university students talking about agility and their career later this month. And one of the topic that I keep hearing is, why do I need to have a training? How does it help me financially? Now, I will answer it in two steps. First, I would say, before you even go to the financial benefit, remember the financial benefit is directly related to your experience as a Scrum Master. I'll talk about Scrum Master because that's what the session is. This is applicable for any of the roles. So let's say you don't have a training, you don't necessarily have the knowledge of what are the right best practices as a Scrum Master. And when you have a situation to deal with, when you are thinking about improving your team, you will struggle a bit. You will probably have multiple failures, which is not bad. You will then learn from it, and then you will get more and more experienced, right? And as you become more and more experienced, then of course your reputation, your knowledge, because of that, your salaries, your contract raise, whatever world you are in, they increase. So financially, there's a direct proportion to that. However, when people go for training, and the statistics shows that people go for training, the jump start that they have in order to excel is very high, at least 40 to 50% higher than the teams. And I actually experienced this in one of the organizations that I was transforming. I was running two separate programs, and I was coaching them, both of those. One had the budget to get them people trained before they even started the transformation. The other one did not. So the one that had the training, by the end of PI2, and when I talk about PI, I mean the PI planning. Those who are aware of the SAFE framework, they will know what a PI planning is, which is, as I explained a little bit earlier, it is about a big room planning where you bring all the teams, you plan, and you start delivering every quarter, as an example. So by the end of second PI, that is by end of about 6 months, 3 months, each quarter, 6 months, the outcome that the customers, and these are actual feedback from the customers of that particular program, changed from that we are leaving that program, we are leaving that organization, to, hey, can we get more of such programs working for us? That's at the end of 6 months. That's when they had the training. The other part of it was the other program, what I experienced is they also went through that journey, but they took nearly 18 months because the failure was costly. There were loads of time wasted in discussions, in the value of agile, all kind of distractions, because they didn't have the basic knowledge around the role of a Scrum Master or a role of a product owner. And therefore they struggled a lot before they reached to the stage where they started becoming more mature. Why am I saying this? Is because answering that question, when your team becomes more matured, then and more high performing, then that is directly related to financial benefits, of course. So hopefully that answered your question. So let's move on. Business, we talked about this. Okay, here, again, this is all about the Scrum Master. That's the typical business agility roadmap. Scrum Master is expected to have a good knowledge about the best practices, good knowledge around how to collaborate, how to be part of a transformation, how to help your teams to be high performing. Right. So AceCube, you can go to the website. It's a leading platform for providing trainings. They do trainings. They do workshops. There are multiple certifications that they help in. There are some great trainers. There are some real life coaches as well. And I think that's one of the USP, because if you come to AceCube, what they will help you is not just about come in here, get some training, which you can do for anywhere. But I think the difference that AceCube brings in is also about those real life scenarios, and that discussion that you're going to have with your trainer, with the coaches that are going to be there to support you, I think is really, really valuable. So I think if you are interested, then that's where you should go. Let's see, we have any questions. How do you handle a situation where the stakeholders are not happy with the Scrum team in terms of value delivery? What steps will you take to inform the Scrum team and further improve the situation? So I'll first give you a theoretical answer, right? And let's start there. When you have a 2-week cycle, as an example, in your Scrum, you should have in your sprint review that you have at the end of the 2-week cycle, you should invite your stakeholders. And the feedback cycle should come directly from the stakeholder to the team. There should not be a need for a middleman, because the whole thing about Agile is about honesty, transparency, visibility, right? It's easy to say those words. It's difficult in practice. In my experience, I've seen it takes time to build that trust in order to have that kind of conversation. But that's why I said it's a theoretical answer. But you should have your stakeholders involved in the sprint review, because that's where they share what they are seeing, what they are not aligned, and the feedback that they get at the end of the sprint. Because it's a quick cycle, 2-week cycle, then the feedback helps the team with the retrospective that they usually have on the same day, right after the review, and they can then take that input from the stakeholders and improve. And what I have seen very matured teams, and I will put that in quotes, mature teams, is that those feedback from the stakeholders are taken into the retrospective and they improve by the next session in the next sprint. Now, let me give you a slightly different answer with regard to some practical tips. One thing would be your product owner is very, very key in ensuring that the stakeholders get what they need to get, right? And that means when I kind of talk about definition of ready. I won't go into the details again. These are all the things that you will learn when you go through the certification. But definition of ready is where the product owner has worked with the customers, directly the end customers, have worked with the stakeholders, internal, external stakeholders. And based on that, they create a backlog for the delivery team to deliver. Now that backlog, and this is a practical tip that I've seen help some of the organizations, is you take that backlog of requirements and you share it back to your stakeholders. And you ask them, look, have I captured, and this is something what the product owner does, have I captured your requirement the way you have articulated what you want? And I think that is very key, because the stakeholder would be, will have to become now part of this journey. They will not be sitting outside the fence, just giving some directions and complaining. They will be part of the journey when they are asked the questions back. So that's one tip by which you can help situation where stakeholders are not happy with regard to the value. And remember, value is defined by what the customers really want. So if your stakeholders or customers are saying, this is what I want, then there's no reason why the delivery team should not deliver what the stakeholders want. The challenge is that the requirements that come through, what the stakeholders want, what is then translated by the product owner into the backlog, and what then finally gets delivered, that kind of changes. And therefore, it is important that in the sprint review, you bring the stakeholders directly in conversation with the Scrum team. Okay, what is the difference between a Scrum Master and a Scrum Coach? I would say more than a difference, there are a lot more similarity. Now, a Scrum Master, I treat the Scrum Master as a coach. I would say they will have to play the role of a team coach. A Scrum Coach is, the way I would say the Scrum Coach is probably more have gone through the experience of delivering complex transformations or being part of very complex transformations, and have learned and experienced and then moved on to become a Scrum Coach. As a Scrum Master, you are still anyway expected to be a team coach helping your team. Cool. Okay, so how are we doing with the time? So we are almost there, 8 more minutes. Let's look at any more slides that I may have. So these are some of the popular courses that are there. Some of them are related, some are not. You are here for the Scrum Master, so definitely go for the Scrum Master course if you are interested. And thank you. And I think there is an promotional offer as well today. If you are going to join today, please use that offer. It's valid only for the next 2 hours. I think if you go onto the website and you talk about that you attended this webinar today, and if you talk about this code, then please just request them to help you redeem this code, and you can sign up. You will have some of the benefits of training, and I don't necessarily mean with just AceCube. I mean AceCube, you can come to AceCube, you should come to AceCube because they have these real life case examples. But in general, you should go through training, wherever you may be, whatever you may be doing, you should go through the training. I've seen a marked difference between people who have gone through the training and the people who are more about learning on their own. So both are fine. For one, the journey is much faster if you go through the training, because you get to know all the tips and tricks around the best practices around being a Scrum Master. Right, so let's see, do we have any more questions? Okay, why do some organizations have multiple Scrum teams? So this kind of relates to what I was discussing earlier about large organizations. Let's say, how can I explain this? So let's say there's a big program, okay? That program is about delivering a particular value for your insurance customer. I'm going to talk about an insurance industry. And they are about delivering insurance, let's say life insurance for individuals, for end customers. So it's a B2C. In order to deliver a life insurance policy to somebody, that is delivering value. And that is a big program. In order to deliver that program, you will not be able to deliver by one team. There will be some teams who will be looking at maybe the one part of the application, the generating the code. Maybe there may be another team who might be processing. I'm just making it up, right? So processing the code, and then the third team could be issuing the policy, and the fourth team could be dealing with claims. So now you have multiple teams who need to come together in order to deliver an end-to-end value of giving that customer a life insurance policy, right? So that is where you need multiple Scrum teams to first of all, they have to have multiple Scrum teams, and then they need to also come together in order to deliver the end-to-end value. So we have 5 more minutes left. Any more questions? If not, maybe we can close the session again. That's the code, Get 100 Safe. Please use that. It's valid for the next 2 hours. please get onto the website, and if you are interested, please register yourself for this Scrum Master course or any other course if you are interested. All right, so I don't see any more questions or there. Oh, there is. Let's talk about a scenario. Oh, that's a good one. Scrum Master is facilitating a daily stand-up meeting with the Scrum team and notices that one of the team member has been feeling overwhelmed and his workload and is struggling to keep up with the pace of the project. The Scrum Master realizes that this could impact the team's progress and decides to take action. So what action he needs to take? There is no right or wrong answer, right? This is a very you have to take into consideration multiple things. Why? Let me give you an example where I worked, and when I have played the role of a Scrum Master many years ago, what has been such scenarios? I had a case where there was a lead developer that I was working with as part of my team, and that lead developer was not able to help the rest of the team. And every time in the retrospective, there would be cards which talk about, hey, we need some support here, we need support. So it was all pointing to the fact that some of the responsibilities that a lead developer needed to do was not happening. So as a Scrum Master, it's your role to work with that team. So having a one-to-one discussion. And in my case, what happened was I realized that he was actually going through a personal crisis. So he was staying awake because he had an issue in his family, and he was staying away all night. By the time he was coming next day in the morning, he was already exhausted because he was up all night sorting out his problems, his family challenges. So in a scenario like that, you could take many of the possible solutions. Again, it depends case to case, nothing right and wrong. In my case, what I did was I asked him to actually take leave, and I agreed with my management, and I was lucky that my management supported me, that he is not able to play that role. He needs a little bit of a time, so he took a month away, and by the time when he came back, he was a lot more effective. So that mentoring, that as a Scrum Master, I keep saying Scrum Master is a team coach, that you have to do with your team member on a one-to-one is very key, because that's how you start building a relationship. That's how you start building a psychologically safe team. Hopefully that helped. Can a Scrum Master be a part of the development team? Ideally, no, is the theoretical answer. Practically, I've seen people do that. Organizations that have had all kind of challenges, but if you ask me, there are often budget constraints, and therefore there is a chance that maybe a tech lead tries to play the role of a Scrum Master. Usually tech lead is often a choice, because when we say Scrum Master is supposed to remove impediments, then the choice becomes, oh, why don't we make the tech lead a Scrum Master, because that person can remove all the impediments. But that doesn't work. But if you do that, I would strongly suggest that put them into a training, because they will then understand what's the role of a Scrum Master. And what I have seen with more mature teams is they start with that person being a developer and also playing the role of a Scrum Master, but in couple of sprint cycles, they end up agreeing that it's a full-time role and it's not possible to play both the roles. I think we have to close the session now. We've just finished. Hopefully this was interesting, was helpful. Again, a quick reminder, if you are interested in this training, please go to acecube.com, and you will be able to avail this offer. If you need to reach out to me, then please get in touch. Again, go to the acecube.com website, talk about this webinar, ask about my details, and I'm sure they will be more than happy to share my details if you want to have any further one-to-one catch-up. So thank you, everyone, for joining, and good luck with your Scrum Master role. Thank you.